Hey there everyone, it's your old pal Joel Reads Comics, back again as we continue our trip down memory lane, revisiting Superman runs from the past. We did the DC Rebirth series, we did DC Rebirth Action Comics, Supergirl, the movie drops today as I upload this video. I'm hoping to actually have the chance to go see it, so I thought it was only right that we talk about The Man of Steel, a mini-series courtesy of famous Marvel writer Brian Michael Bendis. This was his big move over to DC. This was him priming the pump, getting us all ready. Everyone remembers that Bendis was coming, and oh, he come, and he brought a lot of change for the Superman book. Basically, none of it well-regarded or well-remembered. This is the book where they age up Jonathan Kent, where he kinda toys with breaking up Superman and Lois, where they fumble Mr. Oz, Jor-El, where they destroy the bottle city of Kandor, which again ended up being really important for Supergirl and for a couple more runs after this. And also, most importantly, this is the book that introduced everyone to their favorite new Superman villain, Rogol Zaar, a villain who just wasn't bad, but he actually changed Superman history for the worst until like 11 issues in when he was forgotten and literally no one mentioned him since. But you know what? It did happen. It is important. So let's take a look at this, and I don't know, maybe time has been kinder to it. Maybe we'll see things here that we like that we didn't like the first time around. I mean, probably not, but worth a try anyway. So hey, without further ado, let's get to it.
We're taking a closer look at Man of Steel issue number 1. See the secret origin of Rogol Zaar, the alien who claims to have destroyed Krypton. What'll happen next? Well, let's hop on in together and find out. Alrighty then, so as the comic opens, we once again see Rogol Zaar, the brand new Bendis villain who we previously saw in the pages of Action Comics number 1000. He's meeting with a group of power players called the Circle, made up of Guardian of the Universe Ali Apsa, some Ranians, some Thanagarians, some New Gods. So basically exactly what Bendis did with the alien races in Guardians of the Galaxy, and the Illuminati. Wow, did not take him very long to start ripping himself off, am I right? What's Rogol's deal? Well, it seems that he wants to destroy all of Krypton. He says that the race can't be trusted, that they're growing too powerful too quickly, and that they could very well destabilize the rest of the universe, but the Circle pretty much blows him off. Now, back in the present on Earth, Superman is dealing with Killer Moth, who has come all the way to Metropolis to try and off his former partner, Firefly. In a fun and funny twist, Firefly thought he would be safe hiding out in Metropolis because no costumed villain ever dares cross the borders there, what with Superman running around. From there, the Man of Steel responds to an apartment fire. Apparently there's been a series of apartment fires that week. He does everything he can to save a young girl who was trapped inside. Why, he even makes a new friend along the way, a brand new Metropolis firefighter who's transferred in from Central City. Her name is Melanie Moore. Not to be confused with Robinson Wright, the other new alliterative character from another city that Bendis created for his Action Comics run. In fact, she shows up here too. The two banter for a little bit and even kind of flirt again. This feels kind of weird because they're still playing with the idea of whether or not Clark and Lois are still together. Maybe they're fighting, maybe they're taking a break, I just don't know. But hey, enough of that, let's have another Rogol Zaar flashback. It seems that when he's not doing jobs for the Circle, which apparently he's quite good at and well respected in the intergalactic community, yet never mentioned until now, he lives on a warlike planet hunting horrible monsters for food and sustenance. Appa Aliapsa calls him and says that the Circle has rejected his idea to go and take out Krypton and that the planet should be free to rise and fall naturally of its own accord. Needless to say, Rogol Zaar does not take this news very well. They also seek to imply that Zaar's hatred of Krypton grows out of some sort of personal vendetta he has against the planet. Now back in the present, Clark Kent turns in his report on the strange arsons happening all over Metropolis. In fact, he even considers that perhaps Firefly would be involved. We then see that Lois Lane is actually in the office that day, and this causes Clark to have a major flashback. His son John is getting older, he's hit a growth spurt, and he's going to need a new costume soon. Lois is working hard, being a Pulitzer Prize winning journalist, and then suddenly they're blinded by a white light and the comic ends. Okay then, so like the previous issue, we open up with a flashback involving the Circle, a would-be Illuminati-style group of the most powerful beings in the universe that pretty much oversee everything behind the scenes. It's not too long after the destruction of Krypton, and Appa Aliapsa is getting absolutely chewed out by one of the other members of the Circle. The gist of their argument basically boils down to, hey Appa, we as a group told Rogol Zaar he couldn't destroy Krypton, then you have a private meeting with him and all of a sudden Krypton gets destroyed. Just to make it even more suspicious, no Green Lanterns, the group that you control, actually stepped in to save Krypton, so what's the deal? Appa is offended by such remarks, but at the same time too, he says that they walk a hell of a tightrope with Rogol Zaar. Sure, he's loyal to the Circle now, doing their biddings, but imagine what would happen if he went to war with the rest of them. Now, back in the present and down on Earth, Robinson Goode, one of Brian Michael Bendis' new characters, is chatting it up with another new character, the Gotham colonist for the Daily Planet. Robinson wants to know pretty much what everyone reading this book wants to know right now, and that is, hey, what's the deal with Clark Kent? Wasn't he married to Lois Lane? Why is she gone now? The prevailing theory around the office seems to be that Lois sold a very popular book and then ran off with the money and the kid, leaving Clark in the lurch, which is why he's been so depressed recently. Whatever the case is, a depressed, distracted Clark also means a depressed, distracted Superman, who on his way back from the Arctic ends up coming upon the Toy Man messing around in Coast City. And when I say Toy Man, I mean the Toy Man, which Bendis makes a nice little joke about differentiating the Winslow Schlott version from the Asian Super Kid version. The Man of Steel manages to defeat the Toy Man without very much effort. He's also joined by Green Lantern. It seems that Superman is also getting a lot colder and more distant with the Justice League right now. Superman hates lying, but it's very clear that even he isn't exactly sure how to come to terms with what happened to him and his family, which was they were all hanging out at home, then a bright light showed up, and then some sort of strange metal creature came through a void and either killed his family, but more than likely took them away for some reason that is still yet to be known. Now, you'll recall if you read Action Comics number 1000, Rogol Zaar eventually did become aware of Superman's living on Earth, which is why they were fighting in that story. How did that happen? Well, it seems that he was just drinking at an alien bar one night with such patrons as Ambush Bug when someone mentioned how great Superman was. They also mentioned he was Kryptonian, and before you could say Heavy Metal Thunder, Rogol Zaar was on his crazy alien bike making a beeline to Earth to finish what he started with the Kryptonian race. Now back at the planet, poor Perry White is in the middle of a breakdown. Not only is he taking the loss of Lois Lane, one of his best employees, rough, but just the general state of journalism in America right now is making him have an ulcer. He says we need to dig deeper and try harder because the truth is more important now than it's ever been. I mean, yeah, no argument from me here. Robinson Goode also takes it upon herself to swear to get to the bottom of what happened between Lois and Clark. How exactly this pertains to her implied bigger plan of taking over the Daily Planet is beyond me, but there you have it. So, picking up from where the last issue left off, Rogol Zaar has come to Earth in search of the last remaining Kryptonian Superman. In an admittedly pretty stylish little set of pages, Rogol goes to the Arctic to find Superman's Fortress of Solitude. This is done with almost no dialogue, by the way. He fights his way past some of Superman's robot guards before eventually trashing the fortress like college kids trash Cancun on spring break. Why, I'm sure he even took an evil alien upper decker in Superman's toilet just to really twist the knife in. Now, back in Metropolis, Superman is still trying to get to the bottom of a series of strange arsons that are gripping the city. And while Clark fully admits his own limitations in that he is no detective, he thankfully knows the world's greatest detective, and because of that calls in Batman for some assistance. Gotta say, Bendis has a way with writing Batman. He's a little salty, a little standoffish, but you know, he has a dry sense of humor and is definitely good friends with Superman. Pardon the pun, but this arson investigation is going to have to be put on the back burner because Superman gets pulled away by very pressing business, which Batman even says, hey, if the most polite man in the world didn't say goodbye when he left, it must be important. Superman comes to the Fortress of Solitude to see it be completely torn open. This is terrifying for a couple reasons, because it means whoever did this was A, strong enough to actually break in and destroy all of Superman's stuff, and B, it must means they have a super vendetta against him. Supergirl, as we discover, got the very same distress call about the fortress's break-in. Together, both cousins end up finding something truly horrifying. It's not just the fortress that got destroyed. Rogol Zaar also went out of his way to destroy the bottle city of Kandor, meaning all the Kryptonian life that was there is now dead and gone. This causes Clark's paranoia to work overtime. Surely this had to be some matter of personal attack, a major slight against him, and because of that, his own friends might very well be in danger. He also runs down a list of possible suspects. Could it have been Zod? Could it have been Bizarro? Could it have been Luthor? Too late though does the Man of Steel eventually put together that destroying his fortress, destroying Kandor, this was all an attempt to lure him into the city. Because you see, Rogol Zaar very easily could have fought Superman at his fortress, but he didn't want to. He wanted wants to beat him and embarrass him publicly in front of his adopted homeworld. Alrighty then, so picking up from where the comic had left off, Superman and Supergirl had been lured to Metropolis by Rogol Zaar to have themselves a big knockdown, drag-out fight. As Superman quickly discovers, Rogol Zaar isn't only strong and smart, he's also fast, like inhumanly fast, like breaking the laws of physics fast. And that's because, well, they seek to imply that Rogol Zaar's staff is actually what's powering him, but that he may be powered in the same way that Superman is powered by Earth's yellow sun. Another thing you're probably going to notice here is that Jason Fabok only did the art for some of these pages, and because of that, the whole thing kind of shifts in quality all over the place. Even with his cousin Supergirl's help, Superman just cannot seem to win this fight, and the savage beating ends up knocking loose a memory of what happened to Lois and John. We see the same strange craft caked in light, only this time we actually get to see who's piloting it. It's Jor-El, aka Mr. Oz, who, if you'll recall, was seemingly stolen from the moment of his death by Dr. Manhattan, only to be disappeared once again at the end of that story. This is also where things get weird, because Jor-El introduces himself as Jor-El to Lois and John, and they act like this is the first time they're meeting him, even though that's totally not true. Jor-El says he's come to take the boy away, no word as to where, although if I had to guess, I would say to try and save him from Rogol Zaar, but it's never exactly stated. Superman also treats seeing his dad again like it's no big deal, despite the fact that, he was really rocked to his core that he could have possibly been resurrected and as a bad guy. Now back in the present, the events of this story catch up with the events of Action Comic number 1000, and we see the fight post-Superman getting his ass kicked. Rogol Zaar talked a big game about cleansing the Kryptonian race, and yet weirdly enough, when the moment came, he seemingly didn't kill him. Superman then decides that it's time to contact his son at the Fortress of Solitude, which he can't do because Rogol Zaar already wrecked it, but Rogol Zaar correctly assumed that that's where Superman would be going next after their fight. Once again, Rogol makes a point of saying that he knew Superman's father, Jor-El. In fact, he says that he knew him better than his son ever possibly could. And then this next part here is kind of confusing because of the art. Either Rogol Zaar hits Superman with his solar-powered weapon and causes a massive explosion, or Superman uses his big new 52 solar flare attack. Okay then, so picking up from where the last issue left off, our hero and villain are still duking it out with one another. Spoiler, Superman isn't doing too good right about now. In fact, to borrow a wrestling term, the Man of Steel is getting a mudhole stomped in him. If nothing else though, Clark had the sense to take the fight out into space and eventually onto the moon so no innocent people would be hurt by this clash of champions. Once again, Rogol Zaar ends up getting the upper hand, and yet strangely, once again, he ends up not finishing the job and killing Superman, instead choosing to make a tactical retreat. Now, once again from here we're treated to another flashback, the one that's kind of been underpinning the whole mini-series up until this point, and that is what happened when Jor-El, aka Mr. Oz, showed himself to the Kent family again. And oh boy, get ready for it, because this is going to get really stupid really quickly. You'll recall in the last issue I thought it was weird that Jor-El had to introduce himself to Lois and John again, despite the fact that they had totally met before. But now he basically more or less reiterates the plan that he had for John back during the Oz effect, and that is he can't trust his parents to raise him, that he needs to know more about his culture and the Kryptonian ways, and that Jor-El wants to take him away and show him the galaxy. Despite the fact that if you paid attention to the Jurgens Tomasi era, that is literally what Superman was doing with his own kid. Bendis really only read the Cliff Notes versions of those stories, didn't he? Oh, but they saved the biggest insult for last. John actually decides to go with evil Grandpa, against his mother's wishes and utterly breaking his father's heart. Wow, all of this just so you don't have to write Superboy, huh? If that feels like that's completely contrary to everything we know about Jonathan Kent as a character, you would be 100% correct. Now, back in the present and in Metropolis, the city is still reeling from Rogol and Superman's original fight. Worse still, that strange arsonist is still on the loose, and with Superman beaten up on the moon, there's no one to deal with this problem. Well, actually, there's too many people to deal with this problem. There's Melody Moore, the new fire chief, as well as Supergirl working through her anger issues, and indeed even the entire Justice League shows up to help out, considering that Superman is MIA, and whenever that happens, it's a really bad sign. Luckily, Kara is able to pull him off the moon so that they can nurse him back to health. Needless to say, Clark is pretty shook what with everything that's happened to him in the last 48 hours. This also gives Bendis a chance to write the other members of the Justice League and hammer home just how deadly, dangerous, dangerous and super awesome Rogol Zaar is as a new villain. In fact, the only clue Zaar left behind at all at the scene of his last beating of Superman is a strange drawing, a circle with a lightning bolt in it. Wait a minute, no, that's a planet being cracked open. And here I thought he was just a big Flash fan. Superman thankfully works a lot quicker than I do and surmises that Zaar's plan was to not kill him outright, but instead destroy the entire planet that has become a surrogate home to so many Kryptonians. And to do this, well, he's going to repeat what he did on Krypton, tunnel all the way down to the Earth's core, which is a power he totally has, and blow the whole thing up from the inside out, unless that is Superman can stop him. Alright, so instead of taking place at some point during the middle of the comic, this one actually opens up with the underpinning story of John Kent and Jor-El. In the last issue, Superboy incredibly inexplicably out of nowhere said that he wanted to go with Jor-El, despite the fact that not so long ago they were fighting each other because he was evil. John apparently forgot all about his death cult, his attempt at blowing up the Daily Planet, and his attempt to kill his father, and the fact that he may or may not have been under the sway of Dr. Manhattan. Jor-El's pitch remains the same. Let the boy come with me, I will show him the wonders of our people, I will take him across the galaxy and give him an education you humans could not possibly do. Does Bendis think Superman's just been sitting on his hands this whole time and that he hasn't actively been trying to do that very thing? Oh, but believe it or not, the stupidest stuff is still yet to come. You see, John says that he has to go with evil Grandpa because he's dangerous. He killed people in an alternate future. He is, of course, referring to the events of Super Sons of Tomorrow. Too bad, once again, it sounds like Bendis only read the abridged versions of those events. In that story, John accidentally kills a bunch of people in an alternate reality with his solar flare. This was only after future Damian goaded him into doing that, by the way, so much to the point that evil Tim Drake from the future came back to the past to punish Damian for said crime. Also, that future got fixed when the Titans of Tomorrow came back and did something, I don't know, it was really vague, but long story short, it wasn't John's fault. Superboy pivots again and says he doesn't want to be on Earth because the Teen Titans didn't want him for their team. Again, that's not true. Damian wouldn't let him join because he wasn't technically a teen yet. And yes, half the team forsaked John for evil future Tim, but then they made up, but they didn't, and then that team fell apart, and again, that was the worst part of that story. Now, back in the present, Superman goes for his final showdown with Rogol Zaar at the center of the Earth. Zaar plans to blow up the Earth just like he did Krypton. Now, Superman asks Zaar some pretty interesting questions about his technology, where it came from, what it could possibly mean, but don't expect any answers in this story. It just feels like Bendis is planting seeds for elsewhere. They fight, and they fight, and they fight some more, and yeah, it's all pretty cool, but they do this thing to show that, you know, the physical pain that Superman is enduring right now is nothing compared to the emotional pain of what happened with his family. Mainly that when Superboy refuses to listen to his parents and to go with evil Grandpa anyway, they decide that, well, better one parent go with him, and because Lois has 2 big book deals on the back burner, she opts to do it. So yeah, looks like Bendis not only didn't want to write Superboy, he also didn't want to write a married Superman, and this was his way out of it. Hey, at least Jor-El isn't the devil, right? At least no one made a deal with him. Now, Superman manages to fight Rogol Zaar to a standstill, but in the end, he's ultimately not the one to win the fight. It's Supergirl who blindsides the foe and then uses the Phantom Zone projector to lock him up. Because, you know, having his family stolen out from under him didn't bruise poor Clark's ego enough. He needed to also not be able to defeat this foe on his own, just to, you know, really put the icing on the cake. Later that same night, the Justice League and the Superman family all come together to have a little funeral for all the lives lost on Kandor. We also discover with the Fortress of Solitude destroyed, Superman now no longer has the means to contact John and Lois out in deep space. Ah, geez, you know, if only you were friends with a corps of space cops that look over every galaxy in the universe. If only you knew some powerful psychics or mages that could use their powers to reach out to people beyond the veil of time and space, but I mean, you know, you just don't want to bother them with your problems, am I right, Superman? I mean, doing that could also cut into your very important brooding time. Well, geez, that's a bit of a downer ending, but it's not over yet. We still need to be reminded to pick up the new Superman and the new Action comic starting very soon, where you can see resolutions to such stories as, hey, who's starting all those Metropolis fires? Is it Superman? Because an eyewitness says it's Superman. So that was Man of Steel number 6, everybody, and if I had to sum it up, I would call this One More Day, but for Superman. Not so much in terms of raw quality, this one is a lot better written than One More Day, but it serves the same purpose. And that is to divorce a hero from his family and status quo in favor of a new one. Only, you know, for Spider-Man, that was editorial editorial taking control away from a writer. This is the other way around. Bendis didn't want to have to write up to what Tomasi and Jurgens had been doing in their almost 2-year run. He wanted to do his own thing with a swinging single Superman. One unburdened by kids. You know, John Wright, one of the biggest successes, one of the most beloved characters coming out of the DC Rebirth era. We don't need him anymore, but you can read lots of out-of-continuity stories with him. I mean, that's just as good, right? Only, no, it isn't. Rogol Zaar was also a bit of a letdown here, too. I'm amazed it took them this long to figure, hey, maybe we should just throw him in the Phantom Zone. Here's hoping you're interested enough in him to want to learn more about his history and connection to Krypton, because you can totally do that over in the to-be darker and grittier Supergirl book starting soon. Honestly, I just kind of want to wash my hands of this whole story. I walked away from this feeling bad, and that's not a good thing. But hey, the art's nice, no denying that. Overall, I guess I'd give this one a 4.5 out of 10. Kinda disappointing.